Standing here with Laddie Cline, longtime caddy on the PGA Tour. He's caddying down here on the Korn Ferry Tour this week. Last event of the regular season. Tell us who you're caddying for you, how you got on the gig, and where you guys got to do this week.
All right, caddying for a kid named John Augenstein. Been down since Huntsville, Alabama, which was shortly after Tampa. I got the gig, honestly, through JJ Jakovic. Helped me out, got a hold of John's agent. His agent reached out, had a good conversation, liked what I heard, so I decided to come down here.
Yeah. And you were telling me before, like, he's a super talented kid right out of college. I mean, he's playing in his off weeks with, you know, Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas. Like, he's beat these guys in college. He knows that he's good enough. I guess tell me about his game a little bit and what you see from him. It sounds like he's got a bright future in front of him. Yeah,
I mean, he's got a great pedigree. Finished second at the AM. Stroke play would have won hands down. He's played at Augusta. You know, he's played some big tournaments. Finished sixth last year in Napa. Top to bottom, his game is really good. Best I've caddied for, I would say, in my career.
Well, that's crazy. That's great to hear because you've seen a lot of good players. And this week, I think even if he were to win, it's not enough to quite get a PGA Tour card. Is that right?
That's correct.
But you have a chance in the playoffs here coming up.
Yes, we do. We're in the playoffs because of his FedEx number, finishing sixth at Napa. Got in. Thank the Live guys for that. But yeah, he hasn't played great out here this year. Just kind of working through some stuff. First year really as a professional with all the travel and whatnot.
Yeah.
Last handful of weeks to a month, he's really been putting the pieces together. Grinded it last couple of weeks on his putting, which has kind of been our Achilles heel a little bit. Seeing great stuff this week in practice, so I expect a really good week, build some momentum, rolling in the playoffs, and hopefully just go ahead and take care of it in Boise next week.
Well, sounds good, and we'll track you guys on that. I think he's got a good chance to get it done. Just briefly, or maybe as much as you want to go into it, I mean, you caddy on the PGA Tour for a long time. It's obviously different out here. The purses are much less, you know, some of the treatments, I mean, it's not as great. It's not horrible, but it's just different being down here. We referenced the Live Tour. Those guys are really flying high right now.
Yeah.
I guess just give people a little bit of an idea of what it's like compared to, say, the PGA Tour to be down here. And I think, though, we agree that, you know, for a guy that's between jobs, coming down here at some point in the season to kind of nab a stud like yourself and then go back up is really the way to go, or one of the ways to go these days.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing to do after watching, you know, Scotty McGinnis come down with Scheffler, you know, Goebel with Zalatoris. Some of these guys, I don't think Hovland played much out here, but, you know, him and Morikawa, guys that have caddied on tour for a long time, taking you know, a flying leap on a young guy. I mean, when I first started caddying, you wouldn't want to touch a young guy with a 10-foot pole. You'd want a 35-year-old veteran. And now those guys are, you know, in the twilight of their career, so it's completely flipped. The difference between this tour and the big tour, you know, it's pretty substantial. I mean, we go to a lot of smaller cities here, which is kind of cool. You get the same hotels and restaurants and whatnot, but obviously you're playing for less money. Tournaments don't have as much money to, you know, really roll the red carpet out for you. They do their best. You know, I mean, there's some that could really step it up a little bit that have been out here for a long time. Won't mention any names, but, you know, it is what it is. I think the tour doesn't want guys to get too comfy out here. I mean, the end goal for all these guys is to get to the PGA Tour, and once they get there, you don't ever want to leave. It's kind of like flying first class after you fly in coach, you know.
Well, thanks for taking some time this afternoon. Enjoy my hometown here in Omaha. I'll play well this week.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Standing here with Skye Dillon, caddy on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's out there with Sean Stephanie this week. We saw each other at the John Deere Classic like a little bit over a month ago.
That's right.
And I'll be honest with you, that was such a cool compliment that you gave me. You know, we got the Under the Strap podcast, have some caddies on, and you're saying, hey, I want to come out and start caddying. You've been caddying at clubs, and you said, I want to start doing it professionally. And you kind of seeked out our podcast, you learned some things, and you just set out on a journey. So I guess just tell me a little bit about how it's been out here this first summer for you. Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Like you said, caddying had always been something I'd wanted to do at the tour level. I was self-employed, and so really spent a lot of time building my business to a point where I would have the ability to have some more flexibility in my schedule to get out here. And so this was the year that I really made it a point to not just have it be something I was working toward, but actually pursue it tangibly.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I did was literally Googled caddy podcasts, and Under the Strap popped up, and I spent the entire winter and spring months just listening to every single pod that you had on there.
Yeah.
And I've golfed for my whole life, been around it my whole life, but there's certainly specific nuances to the craft.
Right.
And so having the podcast to be able to kind of get those nuggets and learn some of those insights was like totally invaluable. So just the fact to be able to get out there in the first place and figure out how to even get a bag when you don't necessarily know anybody. So just learning from the different guys and gals you had on there was awesome. That was really my inroad.
What so now, I mean, but there's nothing beats actually being out there in the fire, right?
Right.
And so you went out there, you made the first step, and you started getting some bags. And I want to ask you about one specific highlight, but before we get to that, I guess just tell me, what are some of the things you've learned now that you've been actually doing the gig for these professionals? Is any light bulb moments here as the summer's gone on, or ways you've maybe changed your approach as you've gotten more and more reps?
Yeah, I mean, going into it, it's kind of like if you've never done it before at this level, you almost psych yourself out a little bit thinking, all right, I got to be everywhere and everything at once. And the reality is, a lot of times you're doing all those things, but it's more internalized, and then being ready for whenever your player asks for that, whether it's a yardage or to do something or, check the wind or whatnot. So going into it, I thought I'd have to be more vocal and kind of put that out there in a collaborative way. And a lot of times you kind of get to learn your player a little bit and figure out that a lot of times they're obviously pros. They've been doing this at a very high level, so they know what they're doing, and a lot of times it's just about being ready when called upon.
Right.
And so that was probably the biggest thing I learned.
Well, I would say working for a guy like Sean Stephanie, I mean, veteran player. Like, I remember when I first worked for my first veteran player, Brett Wederick, a decade ago, and it's just such a different experience caddying for, because they just kind of know what they want, and you know what you have to deliver. But you found yourself in the mix right off the bat. You went out on the LPGA Tour, which I've always wanted to caddy out there, never had the opportunity. And like one of your first weeks, you find yourself in one of the final groups at a major championship on the LPGA ShopRite Classic with Lindsay Weaver-Wright. And I remember watching this tournament, and I told you this, I was like, somehow it was on. I got a young daughter, watching it with me, and I'm like, let's watch the girls a little bit. And your girl made a sick birdie putt on the last hole to force a playoff. Just tell me about that week for you and how exciting it was to be in the mix.
Yeah, so first off, Lindsay's an awesome player, like just awesome player, and that week was I think a testament to just her ability to play when it matters most. Under that kind of a spotlight and pressure, she excelled. Her last 9 holes were just flat. I mean, she made the birdie putt on 18, but there was 3 other putts that she made for birdie prior to that on the back 9. So just ice in the veins, if you will. But that week was pretty fulfilling in a lot of ways. I'm from New Jersey, and so that was the first tournament that I kind of put my name in the hat, so to speak, as a local caddy. And Lindsay picked me up. And 3 weeks prior, they were at the Founders Cup in Montclair, which is my hometown. And I'd run into a caddy named Jody Keepers out there for Rachel Rowana. And long story short, he was the first guy that I said, how do you get out here? If I'm looking to do this, how do I get a bag? And so I talked to him a good amount of time that week, around the practice area and stuff. And so fast forward 3 weeks later, I'm in AC at the ShopRite LPGA Classic, and I see him on the first practice day, 7 a.m. on the putting green, and kind of had a double take, seeing each other there. And I, made a point to obviously thank him, and it's kind of full circle in a way. But so that was the way we kicked off the week, and then obviously, Lindsay played spectacular down the stretch, and like I said, she was playing with some pretty experienced players in their own right, major champions or whatnot, and down the stretch really made a run, and that putt on 18 was amazing. It was amazing.
Well, hey man, it was so cool to run into you here in my hometown, and I just am so stoked for you that you're out here chasing your dream, and that you referenced a little bit of our work to get yourself out here. I hope you have a great week here in Omaha.
Yeah, appreciate it, John. Yeah, thanks for doing what you do.